kind of interesting, boys, but I felt as if this game was quite literally everything we talked about on Friday, right? Like the opportunity was there despite you not earning the opportunity. The NFC South is in shambles, okay? Like the ability to make the playoffs with an 8-9, maybe even like a 7-10 record. I'm not convinced. Like it is there, okay? So I don't care that you started 2-4. All that matters is what you do from this moment on. And, you know, on Friday we highlighted Alvin Kamara, right? And talking about that quiet and the fact that he's the one that broke the quiet. He gave a speech saying we have to refine our confidence. We have to refine our swagger. And the fact that he gave the speech, well, to me, and I want to talk about the defense because they did just that, right? Like the speech came true. But to me, you have to start talking about this game, talking about Alvin Kamara, because if the Saints do end up saving this season, which only time will tell, you will point back to that moment of leadership from Kamara, immediately followed up with a dominant 3-touchdown performance where he put the offense on his back and just made play after play. Alvin Kamara, Jake, I'm sure when you're talking about running back, you can appreciate it to an even further depth. But he was fantastic yesterday.
He was, and if you don't have Michael Thomas, if you don't have Jarvis Landry, if you don't have all of your weapons, I mean, they're even down Adam Troutman. They're down so many weapons like we talked about last week. Well, find your best player. Feed your best player. Feature your best player. Yeah. And that's what they did, and we've been calling for it. Like, that's all you need right now at the quarterback position for the Saints. Find Alvin Kamara, throw him the football. Obviously, he's going to run the football, had 18 for 62, but it was through the air that he had his major impact, and that kind of went away for a while, right? Because, look, that's not Jameis's game. He likes to look downfield, likes to push the ball downfield.
But help me with that. Like, because you watch this game, and, yeah, Andy Dalton loves Alvin Kamara. He's very good at getting the ball. Why couldn't any quarterback just be good at that? Like, maybe I'm just not giving the credit that it takes to affect a short passing game well or just be able to make those throws. But, like, to me, he seems like a quarterback's greatest ally. Like, if you're ever in trouble, just dump it. Or just go to him first. Like you don't have to throw it 40 yards downfield. Like, and you're right, it's one of the more questionable parts of Jameis Winston is that for whatever reason, he just could not get Kamara going when he was at quarterback.
Yeah, and you have to go through your progression. Just like, hey, 1, 2, check down, right? I mean, you have to know that you have an elite person catching that check down as well, and he has to be. Now, some of that was probably designed. Like, he ran, we used to call it, angle route, Texas route, whatever you call it in the game where he scores a touchdown. Like, that's probably where he's going to be more of a primary receiver in the progression. Like, it's not always the back's got to be the last guy in the progression. So play calling falls into that as well.
Yeah, I have it written right here. I want to say both touchdowns were on the angle route, or either there was another big game, but I have it written right here. Is a running back angle route the best route in all of football? I mean, if you get a linebacker manned up, they are never defending that. Like Alvin Kamara will always beat them because they're terrified of him going to the flats, and then they're done. It's funny, like in freaking Madden 09, that was my man beater with Reggie Bush. If you knew it was man, like, and you had the angle route, like 100% of the time it worked. Turns out the NFL, no different. Ooh, you're seeing it right there. If you watch on YouTube.com/1045ESPN, that one was just. How about the body awareness here from Kamara in the wash, spinning around, getting hit, going to the end zone backwards, and being clear of mind and athletic enough to just poke the ball over. Second touchdown of the day. Also
a very savvy move by him on that angle route, not to continue to go as you keep playing it, Danny, the end zone copy of it. Like, he, instead of going outside and just continuing on, which is really what the route calls for, he realizes Jones is rushing upfield, slips inside of him, and it's not even a full angle route. He just kind of turns it into a choice route for him. And so, like, you get that because he's really good at running routes. He's a savvy vet. He knows, look, I know the route's supposed to go out to the flats more, sell it more, then come back inside. But he realized if I go outside of Jones here, I'm going to get picked off. I'm done. I'm not going to be in the route concept. And so even things like that, he understands where to be and has the ability to pull a move off where he can slip inside and still – be open like that. I think you're right, T. I think he scored on both of those angle routes.
Yeah, he's so strong. Yeah, and the other one was just wide open, just pure speed to the edge, stiff arm touchdown. It was awesome. He's so strong. Like, when he is fully healthy, his burst feels like a shotgun blast. like how quickly he can get it going on some of these screens where he makes that one cut and then gets upfield. It looks like he should get 1 yard. He ends up with like 4 or 5. It seems like consistently. So he was just, at one point in this game, the Saints had run 37 plays, and I don't know what the final count was, but they had run 37 plays, and Alvin Kamara touched the ball 17 times. I want that. I like that. Like, overcommit to Kamara. Make defenses overcommit to stopping him, and then unlock Olave. And eventually, I still have to believe that Thomas and Landry will play football at some point this season, but you still got Olave. Raheed Shaheed. I mean, hey, Raheed Shaheed's pretty good, dude. Caught another 30-yard pass on Sunday. So, and then I think probably offensively right after Kamara, you got to talk about Taysom Hill. The Taysom Hill package is humming right now. And Pete Carmichael has an excellent understanding of like the timing of the Hill package, because you no longer have Drew Brees, the friction of why are we taking off a Hall of Fame quarterback for Taysom Hill is now removed. Like, nobody minds Andy Dalton coming up the field for Taysom Hill. I want to say the Saints are something after this game, like 13 of 13 or 14 of 14 on 3rd and 1 this year.
Yeah.
Like, they're the only team in the NFL, and a lot of that goes back to Hill. And now Hill is actually kind of making himself into a legitimate tight end. Where, like, he's having a couple just kind of routine tight end catches over the middle. It's pretty unreal just how well the Hill package is working out.
I agree with you there, because he's dynamic when he has the ball in his hands. I think they're finding the right times when to call it, when not to mess up the flow of the game, which has always kind of been a struggle, I think, for the Saints, even with Sean Payton. And also, he's starting to get attention even when he's not getting the ball.
Yep.
Like, when he's lining up to run a route, he's getting attention. Like, on one of those angle routes that Kamara did score, the one with the stiff arm into the end zone, like, he was in that concept, right? And he's put out right on the outside of him. He kind of runs the same route. You have 2 double ends right there, and you have a defender that's paying attention to Taysom Hill instead of Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, so it's funny, man. It feels like we have watched. It's almost like is that the second angle route?
That's the first. There it is,
yeah. There it is right there. It's almost like we have watched this. This was a baby that we watched get older, go through some awkward times as it learned how to walk, and now look at our kid. It's walking, it's talking, it's helping out around the house. The Taysom Hill package has truly come into its own. It is aged quite nicely. Shout out to Pete Carmichael. So, okay, we spent this whole first segment on the offense, which a lot of you could be yelling about, right? Because, well, to be frank, although it was great to see Kamara and everybody score yesterday, the offense has been fine. Since week 4, the offense has been a top 5 offense in the entire league. Now, they cut down the turnovers. That was great. The big weakness of this team was the defense. They pitched a shutout yesterday. Let's break it down next here on OTB. Talk about it offensively. Look, Andy Dalton, fantastic. I probably missed this, so this is on me. But is Dalton doing I love you to his family? Is that what this is? Do y'all know, boys?
That's what
right?
that means.
That's what it looks like, right? He seems so happy. He's obviously looking at somebody in the crowd. We all know this means I love you. I don't know, maybe there's some TCU thing that I was missing, but I'm pretty sure they do something like a little more like carpal tunnel-y.
It's like,
yeah, it's something like kind of hurts your knuckles a little bit. But yeah, Dalton was fantastic. Kamara fantastic. Taysom Hill fantastic. O-line, Cesar Ruiz, dude. Cesar Ruiz has played well. I mean, we're the fact that we're not talking about him is probably the best thing for Cesar Ruiz. And but the story of yesterday has to be, outside Alvin Kamara, the Saints defense, because they have been awful, and they set the tone early, forced the Raiders out the first couple of drives. And it really, I guess, Jake, where do you think it started? Because I thought that the pass rush was excellent.
Yeah.
But I also thought that, like, Alante Taylor and Paulson Adebo, 2 young corners, held up very well on the outside. And maybe got a little lucky at times, but, like, they were going after him with Devontae Adams, and Derek Carr and Adams just couldn't get anything going.
Like, I mean, there's so many ways the Saints team dominated on the defensive end, because in an NFL game, you only gave up 3.3 yards per play.
Damn.
183 total yards. And against a team that has weapons. I mean, you listed off a couple of there. Like, Josh Jacobs coming into this game was as hot as anyone in the NFL. And the Saints just finally did, I think, some of the things that we thought they could do with the personnel that they had. I mean, you hold them to 38 rushing yards, 2.9 yards an attempt. And look, they had the ball for 25 minutes. I mean, they ran 56 plays to your 63. So it's not one of those games, T, where they had 30 plays, and
Yeah.
they just couldn't get the ball back. And they didn't really have that. What they have
38 rush yards for the Raiders. That is wild.
And Josh Jacobs was again.
He had like
he's
400.
incredibly
He
high.
had hit over 400 in the last 3 or something like that coming into the game.
And they only had one turnover, so it wasn't just this game where they had 5 interceptions or anything either. And that's why they didn't have the ball, and that's why they didn't have success. And so it was total domination by the Saints defense. Again, a unit in which we thought they had the skill set to be able to do that all year long. They haven't certainly done that, and this was the first time in a long time we've seen them step up. And you're starting to see some of those guys that are young or maybe have been there for only a couple of weeks, like a Chris Harris, start to kind of figure out themselves within the defense as well.
Yeah, and look, the pass rush, to me, this was one of those dream days for the pass rush and Saints fans where Onyemata gets a sack, Davenport gets a sack, Cam Jordan gets a sack, Peyton Turner even gets a sack. Peyton Turner playing. I suppose he played well. Look, Marcus Davenport's probably the one that flashed the most out of that group. I mean, Cam Jordan's always, doing what Cam Jordan does, and you don't hold them to 38 rush yards like Cam Jordan, constantly setting the edge like he has been doing for over a decade in the NFL now. But Marcus Davenport's impact was felt multiple times throughout yesterday. And so if the Saints are going to pull this off, Jake, like if they're actually going to fight for the NFC South and maybe even get it, it's like this has to be closer. I'm not saying certainly every game you're not going to end up with all these guys getting sacks. That's unrealistic. But you have to land closer to this than what you have been, because if this just ends up being a flash in the pan, well, you're still going to struggle. And also just for like Onyemata and Turner and for the fan base's mental health, if those guys can develop and or excuse me, not Onyemata, but more Davenport and Turner, if those guys can continue to develop and make plays consistently week in and week out, well, then all of a sudden you feel a lot better about the resources that you used getting them, and you feel a lot better about the potential of the defense. Because if they can affect the game in that manner, well, that's a strong-ass defensive line. I really liked Alontae Taylor as well yesterday. As I said, Raiders really going after him. The stare down of Devontae Adams was bold, and he did not end up getting burned from it. But that is indicative of a young man who does not lack in confidence, which I suppose you have to if you're going to play corner in the NFL.
Oh, you absolutely have to, and certainly if you're going to get someone like that. And this is a player that's got a lot of confidence. He's an early round draft choice, and so I'm okay with that. I'm okay with him trying to challenge himself, challenge one of the best receivers in the NFL as well. That's a position because you've been without Marshawn Lattimore. You had to have guys step up, and the defensive backs, because you got rid of CD Deuce and you've been getting exposed over the last couple of weeks, there's a lot of pressure on that unit, and you need somebody to step up. You need somebody to have a game like he had yesterday.
Yeah, and it makes you feel a bit better now when Marshawn Lattimore does return. You are developing some really nice skill sets and putting your young corners into positions where, you're asking them to stand up to some intensity there. We all love to see a Tyrann Mathieu pick, obviously, right? Who doesn't? Just an awful decision by Derek Carr. I don't know what happened. He did not see. I don't know if he didn't see like that. What was that? Just basic cover two? I mean, I don't know. It was just Pete Werner just kind of chilling there in the zone. Yeah. He threw it straight to him. Werner can't quite come up with a pick, but who never does, who never fails to. The Honey Badger getting it done. Here's what I would say about the Raiders, Jake, is that if you haven't followed what they've been doing, you may be saying we're making too much of beating a bad team, and you're not wrong. Like, they are a bad team. Bad teams find a way to lose. But they have been significantly better than what they looked like yesterday. As you mentioned, they had lost all close games in their losses. Yep. Jacobs was as hot as anybody in the NFL. Certainly Adams and Carr were a disappointment coming into yesterday, and that continued. But, they hadn't even given up a 100-yard rusher or receiver yesterday, before yesterday, and then Alvin Kamara dominates them. So it's maybe a bit better win than the record would have you believe, especially dominating 24-0. And you always love to see this, Jake. You saw how hyped up Dennis Allen was. Last play of the game, Raiders going for a garbage touchdown, trying to take the goose egg off of the scoreboard and Pete Werner finds a way to tackle him inbounds in the 5, and they get to take that shutout home.
And also, like, that's a game for him in which he was the Raiders head coach. I'm sure there's some history there, and the way the Raiders kind of work, I'm sure it didn't end well. I'm sure they probably were Bush League about the way that everything happened as well. Looking at, and I know he didn't have success there, but, you know, that game meant something to him. But also, shutouts always mean something, and I think it probably, like, you know, puts like a stamp on the performance that they had as well. The fact that you can shut out an NFL team. This is like, and you don't want to overreact to one win.
They are,
and it doesn't matter the record. I mean, the NFL, a win's a win.
Yeah.
You don't want to overreact as far as what you did, but with the way the South is, this could be a springboard type win to be, because you have the talent. It's not like you don't have guys on the field.
True.
Like, you have the talent. This could be something that, you know, maybe you get some momentum, you unlock something, you get, hopefully, some of these guys back. The injury list is still long and distinguished. I mean, you got to get some of these guys back eventually.
I mean, just give us an update. I mean, I know they never will, and it just is what it is. And I've spent, you know, my entire adult life doing this job and yelling about coaches. Just please, just like, give us some sort of information so you can stop existing in this kind of perpetual purgatorial limbo where we're just like, what is actually going on with Mike Thomas? What's actually going on with Jarvis Landry? But eventually, they have to come back, right? Like, yeah, eventually they do. And then that's when you can really maybe see this offense achieve its final form where, okay, you want to try to stack the box last year like you did against Kamara, because he's really heating up. And really for Kamara, he's been playing great all year. It was just the touchdowns that was lacking. He's now burst through that door. So I expect only good things from him from here on out. And then again, you just really, because Olave right now is perfectly positioned to do this, but you would love to get either Thomas or Landry back in case you want to overcommit to Alvin. Well, then, you know, you're going to be stressed in multiple different ways. Everything we talked about before the season could potentially come through now that Andy Dalton is taking advantage of Kamara in the way that he is.